looking for sympathy. I know where it is. Court. Are we ready there, Tim? Yes. All right. In that case, let us move on to the consent agenda, and we'd be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the minutes of the June 26, 2017 Board of Education meeting, the financial report for June 2017, checks number 7799 through 7892 in the amount of $993,307.35. ACHs number 161701595 through 161701651 and number 171800001 and 171800050 in the amount of $783,330.46 and a wire transfer in the amount of $8,301.96 for a total of $1,785,439.77.
Second. Okay, motion for Ms. Mead, second for Mr. Merritt. Any discussion? You've all had a chance to review the documents that were there. Any questions? In that case, Bobby, let's do a roll call.
Andy Mary,
Yes.
Nolte,
Yes.
Patrick McKenna,
Yes.
Danielle Yushka,
Yes.
J.D. Schrader,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Jessica Mead,
Yes.
and Mike Foley.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, citizens and delegations. Do we have anybody signed in?
No.
Then, we will move on to item 4, new business. And 4A is, looks like some policy, 5 different policies. I assume these are all up for first reading?
Just format changes.
Just format changes. Okay, thanks, Bobby. So this is just to bring it up to the current format, no real changes.
Just notifying.
Okay. So I don't think we need to
No.
take any action on this. Anybody have any questions on the policy? Okay, good enough. Item 4B, budget status.
Well, I was going to hopefully have some news to report tonight, and I just wanted it as an agenda item. But as most of you know, that the state hasn't passed a budget, and I've got some comments related to the Republican Senator Scott Fitzgerald's proposals that were submitted last week. And there's just a couple of concerns that I have, and I encourage the board members to follow the budget activity. And I've been reading the Journal Sentinel, and there are a couple of items in there that are a little bit concerning for me. And the first one is has to do with what they're proposing in terms of excluding referenda for shared cost. So buried in the budget packet is a proposal that suggests that districts that go out for referenda, both for general obligation bonds for construction or for operating revenue overrides, those would be excluded from shared cost and wouldn't, so then like a community like Antigo wouldn't get state support for that bond issuance. And I don't know where it's going to go. I called John Forrester today and spoke to them, and he said that was originally proposed in Governor Walker's budget, or had talked about it, but it got dropped from the draft, and the Senate's putting it back in. Now, I don't know where that's going to go. He alluded to the fact that the legislator from more wealthy districts are targeting smaller districts, rural districts that are poverty poor, aid rich. So districts exactly like Antigo can be frustrating for folks that don't get much equalized aid. But that's the whole point of having the aid formula. Poor schools get more of state aid. And so I think all of us should pay attention to that. I've got a call into Senator Tiffany's office and then Mary Falkowski's office telling them that that wouldn't be good for Antigo. So I've asked them, I mean, that's probably the biggest concern. The other one, the low-cost ceiling is in the Senate proposal. So what the low-cost ceiling does is in our equalization aid formula, there's a piece that says if you don't spend $9,100 per student, the state raises your base and allows you to spend $9,100. That hasn't been changed in a number of years. What the Senate's proposal is suggesting is this year they would raise it to $9,300. Antigo's base is at $9,275, so we would receive the potential to receive $25 additional per student. And then the proposal is to raise it $100 each year until it gets up to $9,800. I'd like to see where they put it in the aid formula. Right now, we get a revenue limit exemption for declining enrollment. And what happens is if we lose 25 students next year, or this year, we get to include that as a one-time exemption to our base. So depending on how they word this low-cost ceiling, it may have a very minimal impact on us because we get the exemption, at least initially. And you're always comparing last year's when you develop this year's. So depending how they put it in the formula, it may have very little effect. But in the end, we're better off always to have our base raised and not have a one-time exemption that allows us to keep it up. I think talking with John Forrester, he really thinks that they've got to solve the transportation issue. He doesn't see a whole lot of disagreement in joint finance over the school portion of it. And he also told me that, I don't know if you've been following this Foxconn deal, where there's the potential, I think the announcement's going to happen on Thursday. And so he said the focus right now in Madison is pretty much that announcement. And he doesn't see much movement on the state budget until around Labor Day or possibly after. So we're going to stick with the $200 per pupil increase as the basis of the budget we developed for the year.
When does the new budget take effect? Is it January?
It takes effect July.
Okay.
So what it says in statute is if they don't pass a budget until they do, we keep the general aid that we receive from the state is going to be the same as next year, which would be really bad for us because we built in the $200 per student increase. But it's just last year's budget, or last year's statutory formula.
When you say July 1st,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the later ones. I think we've gotten probably into September, but I think we're only one of 3 or 4 states that doesn't have their budget settled.
Yeah.
What was in there about affecting referendums? The clauses in the Senate package, right, that they can only be run during spring and fall general elections?
That's also in there, and then there was one other item that I had. Oh, they've also put a moratorium on energy exemption projects.
Mm-hmm.
And in Walker's original proposal, they were going to eliminate them. And so a little difference there, but the same effect immediately.
That's a one-year moratorium,
A 2-year,
starting July 1st.
as soon as the budget is passed.
When does that referendum thing start?
I believe as soon as the budget will be passed, but I'm not sure. I imagine if they're scheduled already, that may take precedent.
Something I read there, I thought said January 1st.
The language in the Senate proposal, I'm not sure about the referendum, but I am sure about what I read said that as soon as the bill was passed.
Okay.
And the Foxconn issue, that's the company from China that manufactures the screens.
I guess they currently assemble Apple phones, iPhones.
But it's a big employment type thing that they're looking
Yeah,
at.
I've heard numbers of 10,000 employees. And I think what the legislature's concerned about is how sweet is the deal that Wisconsin is to get them to come here, what incentives they're offering,
Yeah, because I
and
feel
what
like
impact that might have on the budget.
isn't there like 3 or 4 other states that are
Right.
got their hat in the ring?
I think right now, I'm hearing Detroit and Pennsylvania are the ones that are competing for this.
discussed.
JD and Andy, the effective date for the restrictions on scheduling school district referendum would be January 1, 2018.
That's it. Anybody else got anything for Tim? Good enough. Thanks, Tim. We'll go on to item 4C, Ad hoc Committee on Facilities and Referenda.
Well, my computer's not working, and I can't get JD, did he bring these up?
I don't think, there's not any official notes, is
Yeah, I
there?
don't see any.
It includes just the minutes of the,
Right, but there aren't any
I
minutes.
don't see
We don't have any minutes over here.
Yeah, I'm not seeing an attachment of minutes either.
I'm not in either, but they're in there under view minutes, right in the heading.
what was the 12?
Okay, well, thank you. The ad hoc committee was July 11th, called to order at 7 p.m. Committee members present: Jeannie Long, J.D. Schrader, Andy Mary, Danny Fayette, Patrick McKenna, Danielle Descott, Noel Deep, and Jessica Mead. Mike Bowling was absent. Administrators present: Dr. Tim Prunty, Jake Leiterman, Jack Neufeld, Heather McCann, Heidi Prowl, Anita Maddock, Amy Doms, Tom Samzow, and Cindy Fisher. There was no public comment. Let's see. All in attendance discussed various options for consolidation. The consensus of the board was to continue moving forward per the motion, which was approved March 28th. The motion reads, I move the board to approve the implementation of a long-range facility plan, moving 8th grade to the high school, 4th and 5th grade into the current middle school building, consolidating 4K through 3rd grade into east, north, and west elementary schools, and closing the remaining elementary schools beginning no sooner than 2018-19 school year, and to be completed no later than 19-20 school year, unless a referendum is passed by the February 2018 spring primary election to implement an alternative facilities consolidation plan. The following voted yes by roll call vote on the amended motion. Yes to Gizlo, Jensen, Long, McKenna, Mead, Mary, Schrader, and Boldig. The committee also reviewed the CISA 10 report and 2015 survey results and the repair estimates from Myron 2015. Schedule for the next meeting to be determined. The meeting was adjourned at 9:15 p.m.
Did you say Jensen?
There was the original one from.
That was the original, that was when the
There was the original
was passed.
motion, not a motion that we didn't actually do a motion.
Gotcha.
You go back to meetings, and then you go down to the 2017 schedule, you find the ad hoc committee meeting, and then you view the minutes.
And something new all the time, huh?
You should be able to just drop
Because
down
normally
from the
there's
main
that
setting.
link in there that says view the minutes right on the.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so how do you get to it this time?
Well, how I got to it this time was I went to meetings, the 2017 schedule, the ad hoc committee on facilities and referenda, clicked on that, then bring up view minutes, and there they were.
Oh, okay.
They should be right within this agenda, though. I don't know what's going on. 'Cause
It's a workaround.
They disappeared.
They disappeared.
I'm not in. There's something going on.
That's all right.
Stranger things happen.
Oh, so there should be a motion to go with those minutes, eh? There is.
Yeah, that's right.
There's
That
just
was in there
there's a
too.
motion looking for approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the ad hoc minutes. Second.
Okay, the motion from Ms. Long, second from Ms. Mead. Any discussion? Additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's, then we'll go on to board action. Item 5A, open enrollment.
Just wondering if you're able to see the attachments on that one?
Yeah.
There.
Okay. So that's just a summary of open enrollment in and open enrollment out, where we're at, looking right now at 17 and 18. You'll see the total is 45 in with 9 new applications, and out is a total of 141 with 30 new. But again, that's very preliminary numbers at this point, because we don't know exactly where we'll be until the start of the school year.
Why so many more?
Does this mean they can apply to open and roll out but don't necessarily go?
Correct.
Okay. So then, just,
Correct. The numbers are comparable to
Are
last
they?
year.
and it just seems like, I don't know, I'm just thinking. So this one that says deletions/changes from 16, 17, so these 17 kids, are they coming back here?
Well, they were either grade 12, or they've returned, or they've moved into the district. Several reasons why they would no longer be open enrolled out.
Okay, but they'll all be back here.
I know that there's a family, for instance, that open enrolled to Wittenberg-Grunenwood after the Mattoon incident, and then came back.
That's
That
kind of
they're
what I
coming
was-
back this year, so.
That's what I was wondering, too,
Mhm.
and I, that probably that same family. So, I'm curious.
Tim, did you have anything to add on that?
Any questions on it?
Do you ever reach out to these folks to ask them why they move?
I know that Bobby has asked some of the people that she's worked with this year when they have submitted new requests in the summer, and I know that I asked that question. People have done that in the past. It's certainly something we'll review, because I would like to see those numbers turn back around and have this be a destination district for people. So that's something that we'll turn our attention to in the coming year.
I think on some of them, Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been part of this for a long time too, but a lot of them, it's because of parents working in those particular areas and stuff, and when you get some of the kids on the far southern or the far western reaches of the district, it's actually closer for them to go into the neighboring district to go to school rather than come in all the way here, so that can affect some of the numbers. Am I right, Tim? Does that sound?
When you see the Appletons, the McFarlands.
Those are virtuals?
Yeah.
Merrill Bridges, that'd be a virtual. Northern Ozaki, I think that's a virtual too, isn't it? Okay, well, as long as we keep monitoring this, I think it's about the best we can do with it for now. We'll keep plucking away at it.
Definitely on our radar.
Item 5B, other alternate consolidation plans.
I want to make a motion to direct the administration to conduct a cost study of Plan B, which I can define if needed, to be run as a potential referendum to fix up the remaining elementary schools and the middle school, in addition to an amount for an operating referendum to help make that plan sustainable, to be completed before the August board meeting or an August ad hoc committee meeting.
Would you define Plan B?
Close East Elementary, close Crestwood, Spring Valley and Pleasant View remain open. Each of those country schools would have one track, grades K-4. When the fifth graders are sent to the middle school, frees up one room which would allow for special education services at the rural schools, and Title I services would most likely be available. So the board's goal of equitable services would maybe be met, assuming we could hire the teachers. West would have 2 tracks of grades K3 and at the 4K program. North would have 3 tracks of grades K3. 8th grade is still moved to the middle school.
High school.
Yes, high school, thank you. And the middle school would have 7 tracks of grades 5 through 7, 5 tracks of 4th graders who came from the city schools. East could potentially become a combination central office, senior center, and daycare.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Schreier, second from Ms. Yuska, to have the administration do a cost study of Plan B. And I will leave you, since you so eloquently defined that, I'll leave that out there. Discussion on the motion.
I've been talking to people since the committee meeting, and with the discussion, I agree that the plan going ahead is probably a better plan, but I don't want to hear for the next 20 years, I'm never going to support a new school or support anything to fix up the middle school or the high school because you closed the rural schools without giving me a chance to vote to keep them open. And so if it's maybe $5 million, it's a lot cheaper than the other thing I considered was making the motion to leave all the rural schools open. But then maybe it's $10 million to fix those up. This would be cheaper, maybe only $50 over 10 years on the mill rate. And it's an issue that to me is big enough, as most of the time we're on the board, we're serving as Democratic representatives and we're being representative. But because this has such a big issue for the community and because we've considered so many plans over the years, I wanted to at least let the community have the chance to weigh in. Even if I don't necessarily think that it's the smartest thing to pass, it's at least giving them a chance. And it comes pretty close to meeting all the board's goals, except for multi-track at those rural elementary schools.
And how about special ed needs? How are those going to be met?
You're going to take the 5th graders out and there'll be an empty room. And so you can do special eds in those rooms at 2 country schools.
So we're going to have like a traveling PT again, traveling speech?
That's got to be in the cost study.
So your goal is to get a single consolidated school? Because you had said that you didn't want to hear people complaining about why they voted against a consolidated single school for the next 20 years.
Right, sort of like to hear about the high school now. I'm doing this more, say, let's have some community unity. It's closing one city school, and it's giving people a chance to save 2 country schools, just because people want rural education more than they value the board's priorities of multi-track, I would say.
So what makes our current plan a better plan than this one? I guess
Well, you could do K-12 busing. It's easier to do the special ed services, and you can hopefully get more teacher collaboration. But we've been running this way for 20 years, and it's not been great, but it's been okay. So people might want to stay like that, and I at least want to give them a chance.
So if we have these 2 plans, Plan A and Plan B, are we going to let the public vote which one they want then?
They will. If they vote against Plan B, they will be accepting Plan A.
what if, so you talked to a number of people, it sounds like.
Yeah.
What did they say about, did you encourage them to come and voice their support for an alternative?
I did.
What did they say to you about that?
Said, we got to take our animals to the fair.
It's true.
Sign-up night.
It is sign-up night. That's very true. Did you mention that there was an ad hoc meeting, just a couple of weeks ago, there was no one at?
I did mention that.
What did they say?
They said, it's the summer. Nobody's
It
paying
is the
attention
summer.
to this right now.
So,
Priorities.
it's a very good point. I mean, you look at like the complexity and the issues involved with like, educating and the consolidation and the reasons for it. Do you have the same confidence that these individuals actually are fairly concerned? These are like highly concerned individuals. Not like, because then the not concerned individuals didn't talk to anyone, they maybe don't read the paper or whatever, they have kind of a glancing perspective, but these are highly concerned people. Do you have confidence that the community as a whole will grasp all the nuances of like kind of the educational things, the complexities of special education funding, the complexities of like, costs in terms of K-12 busing and all of that?
I guess my more general argument would be, when we had those listening sessions, we put it out on Facebook, it got out in the press, we really said, hey, we're looking for the community feedback. Mm-hmm. We never put it on our Facebook page and said, hey, come to the ad hoc meetings and give us your feelings again. I'm not sure people expected us to kind of give up on this quickly after we said we would try to run something. But I agree that I'm sure they're not as versed on the issues as who would be, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. No, I'm just saying, like, what you're putting up is alternative that you don't think is as good. You think it won't be as good for education.
But I think people might like it better, and that's more important to me than what I think is better.
So,
But overall.
but you know more about what's going on right now and what the board has been facing, perhaps, you know, and they did elect you, you know, to the board. You know, after you voted to close.
Right,
I
and
mean,
most of the people I
schools
talked
now.
to said, I can't believe you're not gonna give me a chance to vote on this. It's my taxes.
Did you say, you know, you had a chance to vote on this? Or did you say you could run for office? See, you can run against me next spring.
Well, how did they have a chance to vote on it?
Patrick,
Well, they voted for you.
And I said during the election, I will try to run a referendum to leave the rural schools open.
Okay, so you're trying to keep your political
Okay.
promise.
Yeah, but
I think one of the points in what JD is suggesting here is to try and get some feedback from the community and try to give them some options. So I'm a little concerned that we would just go through ad hoc and say, we're done with this, and that's it, because I don't think people were paying attention to the ad hoc committee. I mean, people don't, they never come to a committee meeting.
Well,
And so I think it's important that this is at least on the agenda tonight as a discussion, but I'm okay with this motion being here too, because it's gonna, we're gonna vote on it now, one way or the other. But, you know, somehow we gotta get some credibility, some community support for what the board tries to do here, and we got a long ways to go, because we haven't had community support in the past, and I know past referendums, people have said to me out in the River Grove area, they said, you close my school, I don't care what you're doing, I'm voting no.
I mean, you know, was
And I don't
that,
think we need to add more to that if we can avoid it.
But you don't think that that would muddy any of the waters on Plan B because we're not keeping all the schools open?
Well, you know, you can't come up with a, you know, the other option would be to say, well, let's come up with a referendum that keeps everything open. And then we'd have people that would say, well, that's not the most efficient. You could have came up with something different that's more cost effective than that. And this one, people are going to say, well, you didn't keep my school open. So there's no perfect referendum here. And I think JD he's gone ahead and picked what he thinks is the best. And if somebody else thought something else was better, they could put that out here right now. We could vote this one down and move on to something else.
Well, but I think some of us do think that it's not perfect, but that our current motion is the best and better than Plan B.
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the best motion. You know,
No, I'm not saying it is the best, but
you're right. And, you know, I mean, I know JD and I haven't been on the board as long, and we haven't been through. But I do think we need to bring our community together. And I'm concerned by passing this and not at least trying to hear them, it's only going to make things harder. Yes, it might muddy the water, but the plan that we are going forward with is not the best plan. What would be ideal is having them all together. And we obviously can't get there at this point, and that's my opinion, that it'd be better to have them all together. But
well, I
We
think I
have-
disagree because our current motion says we can have them all together and we don't need to go to referendum.
we can't have them all together.
you mean one single,
It is going to be harder than can be to have your family split like that with small children. And I am going to live that, JD is going to live that. You guys are getting past that. And I've talked to people in other districts. It's hard. It's really hard. I'm going to do 3 schools this next year. I'm going to have one in preschool, one at Crestwood, and one at East. It is hard, and we have to take the community's input and consider where they're at.
so Danielle, that's with the current structure, you will have 3 at 3 separate schools.
Yes, but I am going to have that the entire way through. And Lillian will probably go to school longer, quite likely. So the way my kids, even though Carson and Lauren are only 2.5 years apart, that's what's going to happen. And it's hard. It's really hard. And I don't want to put it's stressful being a parent. And we are putting more stress on families, I think, with this plan. It's it'd be different if the kids were older, but I'm not comfortable if my third grader, if my middle schooler has to stay home and, they're too little to stay, if I can't be home right away, they're too little to be home with the buses and everything like that. And,
But what you're saying is, you have that right now. I mean, I guess.
I'm gonna have that with the way it's gonna be. I could choose to
And
put
you have
Carson
it
at
right
ease,
now.
and I have it right now. So I'm living it, so I think that's why I'm so compassionate about that, and why I'm struggling so much with this plan. From equitable class sizes and I can't even, all the benefits of it. I understand and I want that for the kids, but I want my kids to be in a school where I'm not bouncing, PTO meetings and all that. That's hard. If you want to be an involved parent.
Does JD's, plan, does that change what would happen to like how your kids
Well,
would?
it'd be K4. It would make it a little bit easier, because then when
So for 1 year,
I think there's a maturity difference from 3rd to 4th grade.
okay, so
And
you're,
they do latchkey in 3rd grade,
Okay.
so that's something, so by 4th grade, you have that little bit of wiggle room. In 3rd grade, you don't.
Yeah.
I just,
do you think that the consolidation plan overall, for our community is better educationally? Or do you think it's a worse plan? Do you think, I guess I'm curious,
I don't
is JD's alternative plan a better one for the education of all the kids of our community? And I understand that you deal with some very real, logistical issues that are complicated, that are not going to get any less complicated. And that's really tough, but that's what I'm most curious about. If you think in your heart that educationally there's a better plan out there, I really support that. I fully, deeply support alternate plan. Now, I support I can say a single consolidated school. That would be my ideal. But that's,
not possible.
it doesn't feel like part of the political reality.
Oh, let me throw something out here too, though. Let's not lose sight of what the motion actually is. The motion is to do a cost study of Plan B by administration, correct? It's not
calling for a referendum at this
It's
time.
not calling for anything else at this point, other than asking administration to crunch the numbers.
Right, but I don't think that I want the administration to spend that time. If I feel like I know there is a difference, which does seem to be a big crux for some people, was with the last referendum that it was for a new school in Anico. But other than that, it's similar as far as giving people an option to keep rural schools open.
I disagree, though. If Mattoon would have been on there, it would have been totally different. And I know.
But now what school is it? What school is it now? Because
Mattoon.
now this says closing Crestwood. So how do you know that now you've got Mattoon people in Crestwood and Crestwood people who are going to be upset?
Yeah, I
their
don't
school.
disagree. It's the location of Mattoon. I think that was too far out there for too many people, for the people that live in Anigo and are working and have to go out there. And
I guess, but then you might say
That
that
was their
people are
school.
like the same way as far as going to Crestwood. Crestwood is a longer distance for me to go for my kids.
not from work.
But
how many
it
people
shifts
actually
more
work
than
in
just the
Mattoon?
actual people. We know that now. There's kids who were, close to Crestwood who are going to go to Anigo, and it changes boundaries for a lot of people. I don't think it's ever ideal, and I think I agree with Patrick. I think we need to look at what is our end goal and what have we been looking at, and are we really going to spend time and money on this, directing administration to go this way if this is really not what's in our goals? And I feel like if you have to choose schools, again, you're going to get a mismatch and muddy the waters, and you will not get a clear answer about that. And I would love the community support on stuff, but I feel like at this point in time, not having people here protesting is like a positive sign to go forward. Because I don't care what anybody says about summer or committee meetings, if they didn't want it, they sure as hell would be here in these seats. and out in the hallways.
Last summer was not particularly quiet.
No, not at all.
But that's because the
Last summer-
school's already closed.
Right, it was already out in public.
I mean, for May, June, I mean, we had people in here every meeting when,
They closed it on April
not the
26th.
fair weekend, not the fair week, not July.
No.
Yeah.
I
What-
think,
Well,
There were a lot of people.
Noel and Jeannie, you haven't had much of an opportunity.
Well, I'm just
to weigh in on
listening
this.
here, talk about the common good, look about rather than your individual cases. How many people are in that situation of having kids in different schools? Throughout the years, your kids will be in different schools, okay? Making that case saying that, I've had children in different schools. I've dropped them off, I've gone to work. You get called, you go, you pick them up. So if you're saying that, you don't want to drop them off in different schools, then the spirit of the resolution that was read was that over a period of time, you're going to have one K through 8 and then one high school, correct? So then that will alleviate all your problems of driving your kids to 3 different schools over the next several years, when your ultimate goal, what I heard at the ad hoc committee, was that over a period of time, we are going to get to a single K through 8 and a high school.
Maybe.
it's not just the driving
Right.
though, it's being involved in each school and things like that. That makes it hard. If you want to be active in each school, and in those younger ages, PTO and things like that are bigger. So in 4-7, that should still be, there should still be functions, carnivals and things like that for those kids. So, and you're gonna need that in the K-3. So it's all those little things, the popping popcorn, all those little things that you don't think about, that as a parent, if you wanna be involved and do those, it makes it hard. So it's
But then you guys are also saying that you're closing Crestwood, and so all the kids who are at Matur now have to drive up to Spring Valley or to Pleasant View. How
Or
is
to
that?
or to the city, well, we could decide to leave all the new schools open and run that. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily that much worse, but this would be a lot cheaper.
Right, but on one side you're hearing that we're going to be strapped for cash. On the other hand, you're coming up with a proposal which
Has
right from the get-go does
has an
not-
operating referendum
Right.
for $750,000 to fund it.
Yeah. So probably the best thing is to go with these proposals and educate the public and solicit their input now, rather than you try to do this in February or March, and then you are going to have your administration start working on things with a 3-month or 4-month window at that time.
I agree, that's why I said I want it done by August, and we
So
decide
we're
on
not
it.
asking for a referendum, we are just asking
Right,
for some
right,
costs.
but in
Then if the
August-
costs come through, what is your intent?
Then you say, in August, we have a motion and we vote, are we going to go to referendum? Because we have to decide by then to get it into the earliest possible election once the budget goes into effect. That's our one chance, otherwise we're done.
So actually, you would have to have this election, in the one scenario, you'd have to have this election before the first of the year if you're running a referendum,
Right.
because you might not be able to do it
And these
next year.
numbers have not come up before. I think the rough numbers were discussed at the previous meetings. When all this school closing and the consolidation plan came through, there were some numbers that were presented as to where we stand.
Never
How is it?
never plan B in a first.
I just don't see the harm in at least just looking at the numbers. I'm not saying that that's what we have to do, but just, and I hate to put that on administration, because I know it's going to be more
So right
work.
during your audit right
Do
now,
you
too?
realize that school is starting and they have all this stuff to get going? And what plan, I appreciate what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, but I'm thinking about our kids' education. And I am a firm believer in multi-track schools. I think that's so important. And travel time, windshield time, our teachers, we can eliminate so much of that. And Tim, how long will it take you to get those numbers? You're not going to get that done in a day.
I think we have to come back with kind of, one thing that goes in my mind, when you look at the enrollment of those single-track schools with K-4, we're looking at about 105 to 110 children. How are we going to, what is it going to look like to split Mattoon and Crestwood's enrollment? Are we going to take the kids that are closer to town and move them in. You know, we'd have to play a little around with that transportation piece to make it look right. And that'll probably take the biggest amount of time. And we have the audit and then the budget hearing going on, so August for the business office is really a busy month.
You want me to change my motion and just make the building part just for $5 million right now and try and do that instead? Would that be worse than give you $5 million to fix up those remaining elementary schools?
Well, I think,
Have that voted,
you know,
yes or no?
I just caution us to throw out numbers, but we reviewed the CISA 10 report last ad hoc. And if I remember right, the executive summary was $10 million for deferred maintenance. You know, and we've addressed some of it over the last couple of years, but I would think that that number is still reasonable, if maybe a little on the shy side. So I think, you know, it depends on what you're talking about. We have to define the window. Are we looking for keeping the buildings open for another 5 years? Are we looking at them for the long haul? That really makes a difference how much we're going to invest in them. So there's, I mean, to give you an accurate number, I think that's
Hard. But that's, I mean, it's probably impossible to keep them open another 5 or 10 years, but if the community wants to pay for it, maybe they do.
You know, so maybe we get you some tentative numbers to begin with, and we define the process through the ad hoc committee.
But I mean, how soon would we have to have that done if we actually want to run a referendum? Soon, right? Before the budget goes into effect and stops us from being able to run referendums. Like probably by September?
Well, Colleen and I will get it.
We'll have to back.
Yeah, I don't think we'd want to wait to run a referendum until next April, because then we just put whatever we're doing off for a whole other year, and we've done that many years already. We just put things off, so.
You'd like to do it as soon as
I
possible, just so you're not wasting the administration's time on.
I think we can probably all agree on that if we're going to do something, we want to do it.
I think part of my concern with the study as well is that, you know, when we were talking in the ad hoc meeting, you know, there was administrative concern about are we proceeding or not with the plan. And we have a current plan, and my assumption is that we're proceeding with it. But just having things hanging out there, I think slows things. I think it delays, you know, things that, you know, we would like to see done in an effective and efficient way. And the more you kind of have things hanging over, the more people hold back and say, well, maybe we're going to run a referendum, maybe we're going to do X, Y, or Z. That's not ideally how it would go, but I think that's just human nature.
Did you think that when we put that clause into the original Plan A?
I thought we were going to move, I assume, my working assumption is that we're moving forward with this unless we pass something else. But I realize more and more that human nature is that if there is doubt, if there are things that could potentially cause delay, it's just nature to say, maybe we shouldn't work on that today. Maybe we should do all these other million things that we have to do today. But if it's a reality, then you move forward, you know, and you make you change your perspective and do that. Now, I guess why did you pick those schools?
Because they're far apart from each other.
Okay.
The remaining 3, they were far apart. And I think it'd be cheaper to renovate the ventilation systems at Spring Valley and Pleasant View than it would at Crestwood.
I think Jake has said that they're approximately similar.
It's a redo regardless of what building you pick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's reality. You're correct in the fact that they have a more similar system at this point, but what's there isn't useful at this point anymore, so we'd be replacing it all anyways.
There's a small crack.
Does it matter if you did a cost
foundation.
study on Pleasant View and Spring Valley and then decided you were doing Crestwood instead? Does it matter to the cost at all?
It may, as far as, you know, a couple, maybe $20,000, but in the big scheme of the, you know, when you're talking $10 million, my personal feeling is that really doesn't offset the proper choice on location for educational reasons to save 1% on construction costs.
So we could certainly vote on this now and change that part later.
I'm curious about the inequities. You know, currently there are educational inequities that exist just by the nature of the structure. We have a couple single tracks, we have these single track schools kind of in sparsely populated areas. And, ideally to keep them like kind of maximally all evenly full, we would change boundaries every year and say, all right, these kids are going to go this year to Spring Valley. These kids are going to go to Pleasant View. We don't do that because it's disruptive. It's disruptive to busing, borders, families, a whole variety of things. And so even suggesting, I guess what I'm saying is that is going to keep, real inequities in place that will exist. And it will do that because geography, of these areas, of scattered sort of outlying areas is going down. And it's very variable. So we're going to keep those inequities in place. And so I guess I'm of the feeling that if the community said we want to pay for this inequity, we want to pay for all of the schools right now, let's keep this inequity in place. Let's max out, the city schools, in the current way, and we're going to pay for it. I guess I would say I'm opposed to that, and I'm not going to vote for that. And you're going to have to kick me off the board, or you're going to have to vote us all off because this is ethically untenable. And that's part of the whole foundation of what's educationally appropriate. And that's why I feel even pretty strongly that even doing this study right now, just really, if I could see a different educational, if you had a really good educational rationale for me, that would be much different. But it just isn't there. Just because maybe people will pay for it or not, and we're just going to, spin that wheel, that's not enough for me. So give me more.
And JD, you did a lot of looking into the reading for kids and how important it is. And you have these single track schools, one teacher, one kindergarten, one first grade. How is that one teacher going to meet all these levels
Well, if it were up
that
to
these
me,
kids are in?
we teach phonics directly and then have more direct classroom instruction instead of open small
But
groups.
we don't have that now. It's hard for the teachers. And, and then you're talking like $5 million and public will pay for it.
I'm not
5
saying,
years. Well, just
I'm
saying-
not saying they're going to pass this. I'm
Right,
just saying
but
I'm giving them the chance
But
to
you're
pass
talking
it.
like for 5 years down the road. For 5 years, that's a lot of money that we could stick into these schools that we have now. We can pay our teachers more.
You're right.
There's a lot of
But
things
we
we
don't
can
get
do.
access.
He's not saying, or I don't think he's suggesting that we're taking this $5 million from somewhere else.
No, I understand that.
We're going to run
I
a
understand
referendum
that.
for the $5 million.
And we're going to use that money to fix up the city schools that are remaining.
I believe I'm on my track. That's my big thing.
I'm going to call the question.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion has ended based on the call to question, so we will vote on the motion, which is, in brevity, is to do a cost study of what is referred to as Plan B by administration. Okay. Bobby, let's do roll call, please.
Nolte?
No?
Patrick McKenna?
No.
Danielle Yushka?
Yes.
JD Schrader?
Yes.
Jeannie Long?
No.
Jessica Mead?
No.
Andy Mary?
Yes?
Mike Boldick?
Yes. 4-4. The motion is defeated. And tie vote. My recommendation at this point is to, let's run this back to the ad hoc. Let's get a date set for another ad hoc meeting and hash it over again. I think that would be in our best interest.
Is the ad hoc facility still in existence?
That committee does not disband until,
We can't disband ourselves, only Mike can disband.
yeah, and it ain't.
A board meeting.
I thought there was discussion at the last ad hoc that it was,
There was, but
Okay.
the committee cannot disband.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, they have not completed their mission yet, so to speak. So let's take this back to committee and work on it a little bit more, please.
Sorry.
Well, it sounds like one of the questions you want to cover in there is how to give community voice. right?
I think
That's ultimately the question you want to solve. What is the vehicle to give the community a voice?
I don't know, maybe we should make more of an effort to invite the community this time. Because now at least it should be out in the paper, hey, it's looking highly likely that we're not going to run a referendum. So if you want to come complain, now's your chance.
Lisa, did you get all that?
I got all
Is it going to be a quote?
Well, not only to give people who want to complain a voice, right, but it's the avenue to give people who maybe have some preference of direction.
It's nice to hear from the community who's going to be affected, what their thought process is. Maybe that might help us make our decisions as their representatives. If we have overwhelming support to go through with a consolidation plan, then I guess
I agree. Then I
the
wouldn't feel
public
bad
has
at all.
spoken, then I think that's the route to go. Rather than coming up with our numbers ourselves, just invite the public and give them 1 or 2 dates and tell them that this is the time that we are going to hear. And make it clear what the agenda is going to be.
Yeah, you guys have been through some hard times and put a lot of options to your public, but we're still not going to give up hope that your public can help you to shape a solution that is good educationally and good financially for this community.
So I'm not quite clear what we're saying here. Are we saying that at our next ad hoc committee, we would try to have that public input, or that would be a separate?
I think my take on it is, Andy, that if we're going to look at an alternative plan, yeah, we need to have some data together, say, here's an alternative plan we're looking at, here's some numbers. Have the public come in and say, here, this is what we're looking at as a possible alternative. What do you think? Give us
Totally
your opinion.
opposed to that.
Well,
We just voted. Yeah.
I'm with you here, Pat,
Yeah,
because
we
we
just
just voted on
voted
that.
against
What do you
that.
want to do?
I mean, isn't that for the ad hoc
Well, no.
committee to decide ultimately now?
Tell me what you want.
Well, I think we just voted on, we're saying, here's a plan, we need some numbers on it, and we can't really go any further until we have numbers. We can't really go to the public and say, well, here's a plan we got, and it's going to cost X number of dollars until we have.
So in the next ad hoc, you'd rather have the numbers and discuss those without a lot of public input.
Maybe we shouldn't have had a motion to have a study. Maybe we should have had a discussion about an ad hoc committee meeting about talking about this, because it ties our hands right now, doesn't it? To have, we just voted on not having those numbers.
No, what you voted on was to administration not to do the study at this point.
Oh, a study. Okay. So what are we saying now? What's different? What's different?
Nothing. We're just going to give it a talk, right?
What you say? We're just confused.
Yeah, we're
I think
just talk a little bit.
I'm not in favor of having another ad hoc committee meeting unless we have some numbers on something, and I think we should be able to, if we know what something is, we should state that tonight.
I would like a plan, an alternative plan that has an educational perspective. I mean, not keep schools open because the community might want them open perspective in a random sort of scattershot sense. If there's a coherent educational strategy that is an alternative, I would be very interested in that. That was not the plan that was presented. I mean, no offense, JD. I mean, I think that, but that wasn't your goal. That wasn't your objective. I mean, I think if we want to talk an alternative plan, it should be rooted in some sort of good educational reason for it. I mean, certainly disagree with me. If people don't agree.
Well, I think I could come up with a plan that has a rural presence and is good educationally, and that would be to build a new 3 or 4 track school in the rural.
Wow, I can live with that. That sounds good.
Would you send the city kids out there?
I mean,
Isn't
that's
this
fine.
Isn't this real?
I would send as many kids there as it took to fill it, but
I would be totally okay with that, actually.
So do you go back to your ad hoc committee and review what your educational goals are and start from there? What are the educational goals? And how does your current plan resolve those? Are you comfortable with that, with your resolution that you passed? Right? You had some other things that you looked at, keeping all 6 open.
That plan met those goals as much as we can, short of
Multi-track.
building a new school.
Yes.
Keeping the 6 rural schools open met your
No,
educational.
no, keeping the 3 city schools.
Oh, the 3 cities.
Consolidating to 3.
I mean, and it's not that we spent some time on that plan, and we arrived at that plan for good reasons. And the only downside of it is part of the community is not going to be happy with it.
And that's the part that's driving you to have further conversation now, is you feel like they will object to not having had a voice in that.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe they had a sort of a voice. I don't know what to say. I'm sure they'd be happy if we,
They probably feel they didn't have enough of a voice in it, quite
or
frankly.
at least they'd like to have another voice maybe. Or I don't know, maybe we should just have a public listening session and see what people say and not have an ad hoc meeting and just say, hey, come tell us what you think, we're going forward with Plan A.
Well,
And then we can decide if we need an ad hoc
Yeah.
after that.
I think, the problem with talking about some alternative plan is it's too hard for people in general to grasp. We don't have numbers on it. Maybe we could come up with specific buildings, but you still got to have those numbers, or people just they don't get it.
I agree with that, we do need numbers, but it's not fair to
I don't think we have an
administration
alternative
right now.
plan.
You know, in the end, if I can just comment, just to help with the numbers is how long is the ask? Are you saying this is Antico's long-range plan? This is for the next 10 years. These are the 4 buildings we're going to keep open. That's a different ask than what's something shorter.
Yeah, and when you say that, Tim, it's really hard to project out 10 years in our rural community when you look back 5 years and the rural population enrollment has dropped by 20%. And so if you said, well, maybe it's going to do that in the next 5 years, in the 5 years after that, and it will have dropped by 40%. So I can't really see going out 10 years on anything. I mean, sadly, I'd kind of like to keep a rural presence, but I think it would be more realistic to build a new building. And I think it'd be cheaper too. I mean, I look at what, JD has did some numbers here. He comes up with a number that's more than that last referendum we ran. It's almost equal to that, what we proposed, two buildings, a rural one and a city one, brand new ones. I mean, it's kind of equal to that.
If I can interject, I think Tim's point is important in terms of figuring out how long you would envision keeping those buildings open. And I
As long as
think
people want to pay for them.
if you
That's not a
say
possibility,
5 years, people will object and say, and then we're going to throw that money in, and then you're going to build something else,
Agreed.
right? So it feels like you need to have the clarity that I think Patrick has in his position on that. So you're going to decide that you're going to do it for the short term and be transparent about that, or you're going to put enough money in there to situate this community to not have to go to referendum for 15 or 20 years, whatever it is. But I think you can't really be willy-nilly on that. I think you have to be really clear on that. And I think I would want to take sufficient time to get numbers that the community can be really confident on. In my last school district, we spent really a year probably planning for what our facility needs were going to be and working with vendors to put numbers to them that we could be really confident when we got in front of the community. And as a person who's going to stand in front of your community and talk about those numbers, I would want to feel really confident, and I know to do it in the next month is probably not possible. Even though you've had a lot of time to look at things and you have numbers that exist, I still think that this is a new plan that you're talking about. It would take some time for us to do that. I still think that your ultimate question really is, what does this community want? And how do we get at what this community wants? And you have heard from them somewhat, right? Because you have some surveys that people have taken, and you have more failed referendums than any of us would like to say that you have. So you have heard from them, and I know you've had lots of community groups that have helped you to weigh in on it. I still think rather than trying to hurry and guess a solution, I want you to go back to the conversation of what are our goals? And what do we try, again, to get the community engaged in helping us come up with what that is. I admire all of your passion for wanting to do something really well for this community, and JD, that you gave a lot of thought to coming up with a solution. And I love what I heard from several of you in talking about you want this community to move forward together. And it's time. It's time for that to happen. You're not together and how that's going to happen. And I think that's what has to go back to the ad hoc and figure out what that is. And maybe we don't wait a month to have ad hoc. Maybe we do that sooner so that you don't feel like time is stretching out and we're going to keep doing this every month all over again.
What if ad hoc meets in early August, gets that situation going, and we give, or we request, I should say, administration to have some numbers by mid-September that we can present? Does that give administration enough time to?
Numbers on what?
Yeah. Like on the Andy's new school on Total on Board.
Maybe that's the only thing we're on board with.
Maybe that is the only other thing that we
Well,
agree with.
or do we come out of ad hoc once we've got our priorities and everybody's on the same page on that?
That sounds good.
That we then have some concept in our minds at that time that we ask administration to start crunching the numbers on that.
Well, I think, Mike, it gets to even a bigger question was what Colleen was suggesting. You know, are we going to hang the hat on some numbers that Jake and I work on, using some inflationary factor from Myron, or are we going to reach out to somebody and say, what are the numbers?
Good point.
It's going to be time consuming and it's going to have costs, but there's going to be legitimacy behind those numbers that I think your community can have confidence in. Not that they can't have confidence in what Tim and Jake are doing. I don't mean to suggest that at all, but I mean, these are folks, right, that do this for their living and give us costs on these things.
Well, we have data on every building, so, you know.
Yeah, you know, the other thing is, you know, you say, okay, go ahead and proceed, give us a number for this new plan. I mean, there's the degree from $100,000 to $4 million by the time you buy property, convert it into the type of playground space that you want. I mean, all those things factor, so, I mean, any more detail you can give us other than Plan B.
I would say every,
Yeah.
There's a lot of details in there, Jake.
I say elite, you know, a nice playground, and I go high with everything, because really, this is more, I want our kids to have these equal opportunities and everything. So I want the best. But I think our community needs to see numbers, and I want all those kids to have all the same things. So whatever it means, but I think we gotta, I feel like we have to mend fences somehow. And by taking, and I feel bad putting this on you guys, but by taking the time to get these numbers, but so that every child gets what they deserve, you're gonna have to go high. You're gonna have it all.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Danielle. I guess I just don't feel like
It's
I
your decision.
myself should decide what best is. You know,
My-
I'd like a little direction from, you know, the board is.
You have to buy more property, you know, everything. That's
I mean,
my
I
opinion.
can certainly do the best interpretation I can, but the more detailed, the easier it'll be.
You're smart, you got it, Jake.
Okay, so you voted not to do that.
I trust
Are you telling us to do that?
Well, so are we just- So I think what we really need to do is set a date for the ad hoc to meet and get our priorities in order.
In theory, you guys are going forward with boundaries and planning for the Plan A, right? Because I'm saying we're probably not going to accomplish
In
anything
theory,
else.
yes.
We have a
because that
meeting
was-
set to do that, to begin that work.
Right, because I was.
The board is given that direction.
Right.
So when's a good date in August, people?
Well, should we do it the second right away and just move instruction committee? Just so that,
First.
Or the first.
oh, the first, yeah, sorry. So that it's.
Piggyback them.
I mean,
Either-
should we do it, or do we need it? I mean, do we?
We kind of just took a vote here on doing a Plan B.
If we don't have the votes,
And unless somebody's going to say, I got a better Plan B, I kind of feel like we took the vote. And from my standpoint, you know, I'm on the losing side. I'm perfectly willing to support what the vote was.
me too.
I agree.
I mean, you'd still hope someday we get a new school, right? That's the ultimate hope.
Yeah,
But
I concur.
maybe we don't
And
try.
you know,
to-
if we want to have a committee that is
Starts
working
working on that?
is working on community unity, that's fine, but I don't think, I'm just not in favor of, you know, going back to the drawing board for a year and put things off for another year. And,
I agree with that one, Andy.
Because I wanted to ask Danielle if maybe we're focusing on thinking that a Plan B is going to be some sort of plan to ease our conscience or a way to mend fences, and what if there's another way to do that? And what if we should be focusing on that in conjunction with this, which has already been voted upon?
You know, and I don't necessarily believe Plan B is right. I guess, or, you know, it's not that I like that plan. My biggest thing for voting yes for it is to listen to the community and have, I just sometimes feel like we're always like, yes, we're shooting that down, and we all agree together, and I have people in the community that talk to me about things, and, you know, they don't necessarily like it. So I want them to know, if they did vote for me, I want them to know that I am thinking about what they're saying, and that I'm not just, yep, okay, Jeannie voted yes, so I'm gonna, you know.
Sure.
So I think that's where my struggle is.
That's where we do need to have the community.
Jeannie's pretty
listening sessions.
persuasive. Sorry, that's a good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so-
mean, because it involves the community.
Yeah, so
And
maybe.
they're welcome to come, and we also need to be on a level where it's a good, open conversation. It doesn't mean that we'll agree with them, but it means that they're being heard.
Well, and I just, but like with the things that come to my mind as, you know, like I mentioned, I think you don't think about things, I mean, whether you have the financial means or if you have support, you know, but you think about single parents or all those different things that you know, I have my challenges, you have yours, everybody has their own, but we're not living in everybody's shoes. So I want to make sure that I'm trying to put myself there and look at all the obstacles everyone faces every day to get their kids to school. And know that I'm concerned about them, and I want to make their life as easy as possible, because it's hard being a parent. And it's hard being a teacher too, you know, and administration, staff, anybody. I mean, so as we have all these conversations, I just want to make sure everybody, that I'm trying to hear and consider everybody's view.
And I hear what you're saying, because we did have all these meetings at the schools. And if we do go ahead with Plan A, what was the purpose to have all these meetings?
No, but that's what I'm saying, it's a different style of meeting, Jeannie. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's you know, more one-on-one, open conversations where we can speak with community members. you gotta take judgment out of that and, and just coming back and, refuting and giving all our, we don't have to, sit and tell them, explain every, motion that we've made or justify everything. We need to listen to them. That's what we need to do. That's how they'll feel heard. You can identify them with them. Danielle, you could say, I identify with you. I've got kids in 2 different schools. This is really rough on me. I understand where you're coming from.
Did you have listening sessions on the resolution that you passed? You did. And that led you to pass that.
Oh,
Yeah,
Well, I don't think that led us to pass it. I think we passed it because, well, we left that part in there about we would look at alternative consolidation plans.
So did people specifically give you feedback on that though?
On Plan A, yes. We went out there, we presented all the grade changes.
In going into the preschool?
Yes.
They gave you feedback? And you felt there was support for that?
Should be a.
That might not be the right word.
We went to each of the schools that were closed with the exception of, we did have a listening session at the middle school. So the feedback was largely negative. I will say that it was difficult to gauge, at each of those schools, there were pockets of individuals from each school, but there were also kind of some of the same individuals standing up and giving extended speeches, at those schools as well. So it was not, people were upset.
And I would say that I received more feedback sort of throughout and after those listening sessions. So then there was more of people who supported it. We know you need to make a decision.
Yep.
You guys should just move forward and make a decision.
Right, and that's what I heard most.
I wasn't on yet when you guys did that survey. And just out of curiosity, would it be worthwhile doing a survey on the plan we have to move forward? Or a choice of a K-7 or two new schools or something? Would that be worth doing a survey on?
Possibly. And you're thinking if it shows us support to kind of tweak it one way or another. I mean, I really don't believe that through our previous community sessions that there was much consensus as to another plan or another route to go to. If we had gotten all this feedback that says, like, you should do this, plan B, and it's ... Great. We would know.
I think the gist of it was do whatever you do as long as my school is open, I'm okay with it.
Right, that's what it was.
In one sentence, that's all it was. As long as you keep my school open, I don't care if the other 5 are closed.
So maybe we need to wait 3 years after the Plan A is done and then resume this?
No, I actually think that is a very reasonable thing. I mean, if you're looking for a charter school or if you're looking for some other aspect educationally that's, that is placed in one of the rural schools, I think the right approach actually is to consolidate first. And then to move forward with saying, here's our plan to utilize, this school for this reason. It makes a lot more sense in that manner than picking schools now, making people angry in that way. I mean, they'll be angry in other ways.
So, after all that discussion, then is it the consensus of the board that there will not be an ad hoc committee meeting in the next month?
I'll be there.
Your call, people.
It all depends on what's the agenda. If you could define what you're going to discuss.
I think Mike is talking about the present ad hoc committee. We can form a new ad hoc committee with a new purpose. But the present one is just, I got to think what the
It is
purpose was.
specifically designed for an alternative plan.
Yeah,
Specifically designed for an alternative plan.
consolidation
Yes.
plan, yes.
And if the committee holds one more meeting and decides that the consensus of the committee is that they cannot come up with an alternative plan and that the plan is it, then the committee's done their work. And
The one benefit of that is we could get a huge outpouring of community support saying, you better let us run something. And then we at least have another chance to come back at a board meeting and change our minds after it was out there for a month.
We hold one more meeting and hope, pray that the public comes.
Or, well, I mean, if they don't come and nobody complains,
Right.
then at least it's out there, hey, you're not running
Exactly.
something, and we still have another chance if they do come and then say, we'll listen to you now.
Well, you gotta have some kind of numbers,
That's my point.
some ballpark number at least. I'm looking at Tim, but he's trying, 10 and 3
Breathing.
I mean, the number, Andy, is, what do you want it to be? $2.5 million to $4 million per building. Or you can look at the
What'd you say,
CCTech report.
2.5 to 5?
To
Well, I mean, when we were with Myron Gray, we looked at 37 options. And we costed out what it takes to keep a building.
So
And that number is $1.5 million, $2.5 million, with some inflationary factor built in. And we weren't touching every space in the building to do that.
Well, all I want us to do is if we're gonna have the public come to a meeting, I just wanna put that number out there,
We can
2.5
submit
million.
those numbers and say that, the last time we did it, these were the numbers.
Yeah,
Per school. And
I would prefer a specific number, like 2.5 million as opposed to 1.5.
Well, it was 2.5 to 4 million, so,
Well, I mean,
and that's not.
when you look at the referendum document that we sent out, we were looking at spending, like in Mattoon, we were looking at spending $2.5 million. We were remodeling the bathrooms, the office, and putting on a kindergarten room. That's what we were doing in addressing the HVAC. And we know the number that we used for the HVAC, according to West, was off by a factor of 50%.
50% more?
Yeah.
Well,
And then, I mean.
so that 2.5 million is a pretty good number, you're not
Three
putting a
million,
room on
what you're
it,
saying.
doing the HVAC.
More like 3.
I was gonna say higher.
So, I mean, these numbers are pretty risky, but we looked at them for 15 years, so we have a 15-year look back at what costs are.
And, I mean, it's things like windows, if this is, to Tim's point, is this a 5-year look or a 10-year look? Are the windows gonna last 5 years? Yeah, but to Danielle's perspective, that's not the best then, if we're keeping old windows. Same thing with the asbestos flooring. Are we okay with asbestos flooring, or do we want it all abated new flooring? I mean, that's why these numbers, I mean, we have them all, we can give you just whatever one of them you want, but it's really what's the overall picture you're looking for.
I think that it strikes me that every time we talk about how we had 37 options, because we did, and we had a lot of community input at that point, and none of them stood out. Does anyone recall any option that was like, this is the one, we love it, that we got community support on? I have a hard time.
The only one that got community support in the survey was operating referendum for 7.5 million, and it,
Or 750,000.
750,000, yes, thank you.
That looked like the cheapest of all the options.
Right.
That could be,
But that was only to meet your budget, that's not to.
If people
do
misunderstood.
anything, yeah.
people may have misunderstood, but when you read the survey, it was specifically to keep programs and services. It said nothing about keeping buildings.
Facilities, yeah.
Mhm.
And maybe we said, we blew that off because somebody said, oh no, we misunderstood that, but people read it, it was right there, I thought people misunderstood it, but it was pretty clearly printed, it's programs and services. And, maybe that's really what was important to people. We never did run that.
Could the ad hoc committee have a community conversation with the public on some of the options that you've talked about as alternatives? Could you schedule some roundtables in the high school and put those things out, invite people that want to come, encourage people to come? Because it sounds like you think you haven't had feedback on the specific option that you're putting out.
The only feedback we got is, I wrote a letter to the newspaper 3 months ago and got 20 emails from people saying they liked it better than Plan A. But that was about it.
So is that, I mean, is that really something that we should do, is start a night where you had something like that to get some feedback and try to get people there? And that could be one part of the night, and the other part of the night is in roundtables. Could people be talking about what else is there consensus around?
One plan per table, 2 new schools, 1 new school, Plan B, Plan A, free.
And I know you've been through everything, so you may reject that, but I'm just wondering if, because it sounds to me like you want to, you have a lot of plans that you feel like the public has rejected, so you're looking at what haven't they rejected yet and how plausible is it? But rather than go to referendum to do that, I mean, are there ways to take a litmus test of the public before we would do that in sort of quick fashion? Or we could get people in and talk about it? I mean, you could really put that out there and talk about that one. Let's have some X amount of time to talk about that, yay or nay, without having numbers to it. Because if they came back and said, we love that, if you had people that showed up and said, we love that, you might feel a little more confident telling us, take your time to go do that. Because we did have some people that took the time out of their summer to come and tell us that. And that, your challenge, of course, is your survey also, I think, showed you that people said you need to consolidate.
Right. That was part of the reason why I picked that instead of leave all the rural schools open. In terms of what should we try to run.
And I want to ask a clarifying question, JD, about the plan that you shared with us earlier. Did you envision that kids would leave the schools within the city limits to go to those rural
I
schools?
thought that might be possible.
So that instead of having whatever it is, 12 kids, 14 kids in the classroom, you would try to have more equitable class sizes throughout the district in the elementary. So you would have a lot of shifting, right? Because you're going to have 2 schools that are going to close in your plan, and then you're going to have
Because if you
some
close one
schools-
city school, you almost have to send some kids out of the country, because right now we got 3 full city schools. So we'd have to bus them out there somehow.
And we already do with the people from Pebble Ridge getting bused out to Springvale.
And do you think people understand that in the community?
No.
I think the rural people like it because it closes a city school and that feels more fair to them.
Exactly.
I'm not saying the city people would like that, but they just say, oh, it's fair because you closed 3 rural schools and no city schools. It's just, I just say it's
And that was
equity
one of the
equation.
big comments on those public forums too.
Did we talk about that last time? So is there so did you envision that all the kids would come into like a transfer point in the city and then they would hop on a different bus and go out to those rural schools?
I wasn't that smart.
Oh. You didn't go that far with it. Okay. I mean, because then one of the questions I would have is how much time are some of those kids on the bus? If you're a rural school heading out, maybe not so much, but I'm not sure that you'd drop every rural kid off to the country before you'd come and do your drop-off point in the
So I was
city.
using my operating referendum to pay for shorter bus time.
You know, but when you mention that, with the current plan, if you move forward with that, how long will the kids be spending, you know, from pickup to drop off, K-3, or city school, middle school, high school, dragging everybody, what, you know, like that?
Averages will go down.
The average will go down. But how much time are the kids, I don't know, spending doing that?
I think, didn't Brian have that at 35 minutes or something?
Yeah, it
That
went
did
down.
not include the time when you arrive at the middle school and then get on a bus to go to north, but it just included the time to arrive at the middle school, I think. But he had it down to 35 minutes because he didn't propose cutting any bus routes.
I thought it was 50.
It's 15 minutes now.
It's 50 minutes for the long, but not the average.
I thought the long right now was like over an hour, and then
Yeah.
with
You have like an
Yeah,
outlier of maybe 3 or 4 who are over an hour. It's not many, but it's they're few.
Right now.
Everyone else is under an hour.
yeah, I had to look at it.
I think there's also some values to evaluate a plan against the consolidation, no referendum plan. And maybe there is more support. You know, we're using JD's Plan D as requiring a referendum to implement. And why we are is, you know, we're losing think East is, the third biggest elementary school, going to a smaller school, so it will require an addition to do that extra, and maybe we'd have to look at it, but I mean, I think that's why we proposed having you do a referenda to go with some alternative plan. Where your base decision doesn't require a referendum to implement.
I don't think Plan B, it just was more costly. It still eliminated one track. I don't think it actually required any building. That was the other, it could have been an alternative.
I don't know how because you're looking at a building that's 25 or 30% bigger than the one you're proposing to keep open.
Is that with 4-7 going to the middle school from the city and then the rural or K-4? Is that what it is? Can't remember.
Where's preschool?
I got one of those.
You have the rural at K4 and the
Yes.
cities at K3.
Yeah.
We have preschool too yet.
Right. The East would still be a preschool
Or don't you have to have the preschool with
or a daycare.
kindergarten kids?
Yeah, but north and west are the same size, and one of them would have 3 tracks, and one of them would have 2 tracks, and so
That's
you would
where
have
okay would go.
room for that there.
So we wouldn't need a referendum to do?
Theoretically, no. I mean, that's what Brian came up with, this as a potential alternative to Plan A, if you guys remember. And then we just thought it'd be a little more money.
So it would need a referendum.
Well, maybe an operating referendum, it wouldn't need a building referendum. I was trying to fix the buildings up if we were gonna leave those city schools open. No, you could do it without it, but that's just, we had talked about it at that one meeting, ignored it and decided to go with Plan A.
So your plan requires referendum.
We want to fix the buildings up. If we want to leave them as is and keep doing it with fund balance, we could probably do it without a referendum. Maybe you need an operating, but if we get a bunch more money from the state, you could do Plan B and
That's fine.
not fix the buildings up and keep going.
Or you
So-
could
so
pay
you-
teachers more.
It's
Or you could pay
comparable.
teachers more. Yeah.
It's comparable to your resolution that you passed and that it's achievable without a referendum.
Yes.
So what do you think about putting both of those as discussion topics in a roundtable? I mean, is that, the hard part for me, I think, is you're craving what does the community want? But I'm not sure the 9 of you can guess.
I've tried for years. To that end as well, if we do listening sessions, I think I would be leery about just listening sessions. I think it would, and maybe you talked about this when I stepped out, but like a survey as well. Like you would need both together. Because there's a bunch of people who are like fine with Plan A, and they're just not going to show up, and then the people who are really feeling grief about it will show up, and we'll be like, there.
Might that inform what would be on that survey?
Yeah. Oh, you mean the listening session?
Yeah, and I'm almost thinking, I don't
Yeah,
know
that'd
how
be
you do the
okay.
listening sessions, but I'm thinking more of like roundtable discussions, so everybody's
Mm-hmm.
kind of engaged versus one person talking at a time, and you can report
Sounds
out on
good.
those kinds of things. But might that inform, if you were going to do a survey rather than, and I really want to be thoughtful about a survey, if you really thought, we want to weigh this option and this option and this option, not sort of 30,000 foot, but I want you to drill it down so that you really feel like you have feedback that informs you and you're still not guessing. Well, they said this over here, but this over here kind of contradicts it. So I would want us to be really thoughtful about that, and maybe that conversation could help us.
The other benefit of the Plan B was, since you still moved the 8th graders to the middle school, you could still go ahead with that construction. And it was supposed to be less disruptive to the Plan A while you were thinking about that. But I like that, I like that. And maybe you put a K7 on there, Plan B and Plan A, and see what they think.
You know, and the price,
Okay.
I mean, or, you know, I don't think people realize what it all costs to keep these buildings open and stuff. So if you have a price for a new school and you have a price to maintain or, you know, or get these up to code and even fix things that are here, have that all included, you know. And I'm not,
Do you want to have a soon meeting for ad hoc to come up with a structure in terms of having some kind of a community meeting? Do that soon? Get a community meeting and then work hard to get people to come up and
Right. But still, the community should be under the assumption that right now Plan A is really going, because it doesn't look like there's going to be a
That's the
referendum.
option that's on the table.
Yeah, unless they
That's
come
the
back
option
and
that's
say,
on.
there better be a gigantic outpouring of community support saying run something.
Instruction meets on the 1st, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
7 o'clock?
Yes, you could piggyback.
Can
They
we,
could piggyback.
can we bump instruction up to 6:30? Ad hoc at 7?
We'll keep it small.
Decide tomorrow.
So we'll go with that?
Yeah, 6:30.
Okay, what day is this?
The 1st.
First. So next Tuesday?
Right.
Does that work?
I guess so.
All righty.
Fair, I'll be over.
Let's hope so. All right, then let's, we agree to disagree for now, but we'll meet next Tuesday and
Maybe we should
disagree
do that.
some more.
Maybe we should do the ad hoc at 6:30 and the instruction at 7.
Excellent idea.
Nice try.
That'll work.
Nice try. All righty. Thank you, everybody, for a spirited discussion, but let's jump ahead now to the employee handbook revisions.
Tina's worked on that for us.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of revisions this year to it. We went through it at operations, the different vesting schedule for the retirement account. So that's in there, that's one of the big changes, and then the other big changes is just to one of the teacher compensation plan.
Just to make, a lot of it was to make the language current.
Yep.
Read it right?
Well, to get rid of the old teacher compensation plan and then put what we have this year.
Okay. We'd be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the revisions to the employee handbook for the 2017-2018 as presented.
Would you like to
Second.
Very good, sir. Motion from Ms. Mead, second from Dr. McKenna. Any further discussion on the revisions, since we already have a little? We should probably wait for Danielle to get back to take over. So we will be patient for just a minute. Hopefully the rest of the meeting will go very smoothly.
Colleen, were you okay with Brian's changes to the compensation schedule? That's on the, it's on the book, it's on that.
It's on there, okay.
It's in the employee handbook. So you're gonna be
With the
back,
new model that exists?
are you gonna be back in a year, we're gonna be
No.
changing it?
No, I think there's some good questions that are coming up with staff as we implement it, and so we're gonna kind of collect those a little bit and then sit down and have some kind of a structure where we review and try to get clarity to their questions. I mean, that's typical when you're implementing something new, but no, I actually stole it and shared it back before I left the current districts, so they can, and they used it to polish up theirs.
I thought you were going in a different direction.
Oh.
Apologies. Danielle, we opened it up to discussion on any revisions. Did you have any questions on that?
No, I looked over.
Okay, then in that case, let's, we can do voice vote on this one. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 5D, new hires. Looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the hiring of the following for the 2017-2018 school year. Casey Hildebrand, special education, high school. Sadie Schoonover, elementary school counselor of the district. And Teal Mock, science teacher, high school, all beginning August 24th, 2017.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Mead, second from Ms. Huska. Any discussion on the hirings?
No, we feel happy to have some qualified candidates late summer.
Bobby, let's do roll call, please.
Patrick McKenna?
Yes.
Danielle Yushka?
Yes.
J.D. Schrader?
Yes.
Ginny Long?
Yes.
Jessica Mead?
Yes.
Andy Mary?
Yes.
Noel D?
Yes.
And Mike Foley.
Yes. Good, thank you, everyone. Item 5E, resignations. Motion, please.
I move the board accept the resignations as follows. Kathy Hackbar, food service, effective June 1st, 2017. Daniel Smith, special education teacher, high school, effective June 30th, 2017. Colleen Harder, math teacher, middle school, effective June 30th, 2017. Chad Harder, math teacher, middle school, effective June 30th, 2017. Jerry Lepore, art teacher, effective June 30th, 2017. And Trevor Basin, the sophomore support specialist, effective July 31st, 2017.
Okay. Motion from Ms. Uke, second from Ms. Long. Any discussions?
Yeah, I want to know about the waiving the penalty for the markers.
Yes. And Dan Smith, right?
That's what Dan Smith also asked for.
All of your employees have it in their contract that if they resign after certain points in the year, that they liquidated damages for that.
So they're paying.
It's recommended that they would pay with that.
They've requested in their letters of resignation that we waive them.
And they've given like 16 years, I think, and 20 years of service in 18.
How much is it?
$1,000, is it?
Yeah, the hard part is teachers are asking their new districts to pay those, so you could be paying it on both sides. You could be paying it to get people, and you could be paying it to lose people. And it is hard on us to lose 2 math teachers this late in the summer. It's a challenge. I mean, as a rural district, you have challenges to attract and retain candidates to begin with, and it's a challenge. And so your staff will spend time, to go do that, and that's why you do liquidated damages too.
And you'd think people would be more likely to leave if we start waiving the damages?
And you really could be paying on both sides, because if some other district holds their employees to that, and you really want them, they'll ask you to pay that to break the contract. So if you're the lenient district, you could be paying it on both sides.
And we can't afford to probably do.
I don't see a problem with them paying it, because I assume the district they're going to is paying it.
Most likely.
If it's not, that's their deal. I would think they would account for that when moving it at such a late
I
time.
also assume they're going to make more than $2,500 more at the new district than they are at this district. So,
I would say if you were going to get in that business, that you'd go back and look at what your liquidated damages are and systematically make a change versus
we did last year.
on an individual basis. I would not want you to get in that.
Yeah, last year we did go back and systematically change the whole deal. So.
And periodically you'll go back and review those things and do those. But I think that's a far better way to operate than creating all kinds of individual situations.
Agreed. Okay. So that if we're accepting their letters of resignation, but we're not accepting the clauses, whether the requests for the penalties, correct? Okay. Everyone clear on that? Any questions on it? Maybe you look like
No, we're just accepting the resignation.
just accepting the resignations. Bobby, let's do roll call.
Danielle Yushka,
Yes.
J.D. Schrader,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Jessica Mead,
Yes.
Andy Mary,
Yes.
Noel D,
Yes.
Patrick McKenna,
Yes.
and Mike Foley.
Yes.
What would happen if we said they couldn't resign?
They could leave.
I don't think it has any teeth in it.
Last action board item number F, donations. So if anybody wants to read that one off, be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board accept the donations as follows. $100 TSI Corporation for Special Olympics, $200 Andy Optimus Club for AHS Boys Soccer, $150 Waukesha Barons for AHS Boys Soccer, $250 School Vantage Credit Union for Fill a Backpack, $200 Johnson Electric Coil for Fill a Backpack, $100 Zolozeski Wood Products for Fill a Backpack, $500 for Lions Club for Fill a Backpack, all donations totaling $1,500.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Dr. McKenna, second from Ms. Long. Any discussion? Only to say thank you for all those organizations for stepping up and helping out. It was greatly appreciated. Anybody else got anything? If not, Bobby, let's do a roll call since we're talking about it.
J.D. Schrader,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Jessica Mead,
Yes.
Andy Mary,
Yes.
Noel Deep,
Yes.
Patrick McKenna.
Yes.
Danielle Yurzka,
Yes.
and Mike Bolick.
Yes. Motion carries. Only one other item left on the agenda. Motion adjourned.
Motion?
Who wants to second it?
I will.
Ms. Yurzka. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned.